Henry Ford was not born into wealth, power, or influence. He was born on a farm, a place where life was measured by seasons, weather, and hard work. The future waiting for him seemed simple: work the land, follow your father, live the same life generation before him had lived. But some people are born with a problem. They see a different future. And once they see it, they can never return to the life was chosen for them. Before the factories, before the assembly lines, before millions of automobiles carried his name across the world, there was only a curious boy trying to understand how things work. This is not the story of how Henry Ford became rich. It's the story of how a farm boy became one of the men who helped reshape the modern world. Born on a farm, learning the value of work. 19th century farm life was not romantic. It was survival. Every day demanded work. Animals had to be fed. Fields had to be maintained. Repairs had to be made. The farm did not care whether you felt motivated. The work still had to be done. As a boy, Henry followed the routines his father expected from him. And also he completed the work, something inside him resisted it. Not because he was lazy, because he saw the world differently. While others looked at the farm and saw a future, Henry looked at it and saw a problem. Why should 10 hours of labor require 10 hours of human effort? Why couldn't machines do the hardest work? Even as a child, he wasn't trying to escape responsibility. He was trying to improve it. That difference would later change the world. The farm taught him discipline. It taught him endurance. It taught him to finish what he started. But perhaps the most important lesson was this: sometimes the place you were born is not the place you are meant to stay. Henry Ford was born on a farm, but he was already imagining a future beyond it. Obsession with mechanics. When Henry was 12 years old, his father gave him a pocket watch. For most boys, it would have been a valuable possession. For Henry, it became a mystery. He wanted to know what was happening inside. How could something so small keep perfect time? Eventually, curiosity won. He took the watch apart, piece by piece, gear by gear, spring by spring, and then he put it back together. Most people admire what they see. Henry became fascinated by what others could not see: the hidden system, the mechanism beneath the surface. Soon, he was repairing watches for neighbors and friends. People began bringing broken watches to the young boy because they knew he could fix them. What looked like a hobby was actually training. Without realizing it, Henry was developing a way of thinking that would stay with him for the rest of his life. Every complex problem could be broken into smaller parts. Every machine could be understood. Every system could be improved. Then came another moment he would never forget. For the first time, he saw a steam-powered machine moving without horses. Most children would have started in amazement. Henry wanted to know something different. What made it move? How was it built? Why did it work? That machine did more than capture his attention. It expanded his imagination. For the first time, he could clearly see a future where machines replace physical labor. A future most people could not yet imagine. The seeds of that future were planted long before Henry Ford built a car. They began with a boy who could not stop asking one question: how does it work? The death of his mother. Some events do not change your direction immediately. They change something deeper. They change who you are. When Henry Ford was 13 years old, his mother died. For many children, losing a parent leaves a wound. For Henry, it left a silence. His mother had been one of the few people who truly understood him. His fascination with machines, his endless curiosity, his habit of taking things apart just to see how they work. While others saw distraction, she saw potential. She encouraged him when few others did. And then suddenly, she was gone. Years later, Ford would still speak of her with admiration, because sometimes the first person who believes in you leaves a mark that never disappears. After her death, the distance between Henry and farm life grew even large. The future his father wanted for him felt less convincing than ever. And perhaps there was another reason he became even more drawn to machines. Machines were predictable. People were not. A machine could be repaired. A broken gear could be replaced. A problem could be solved. Life was different. Some things could not be fixed. Some losses could not be undone. And for a young boy trying to make sense of grief, the world of mechanics offered something life could not: control. The death of his mother did not create his passion, but it pushed him further toward it, and further away from the life others had planned for him. Leaving home for Detroit. At 16 years old, Henry Ford made a decision that would define the rest of his life. He left the farm. To many people, that might not sound extraordinary, but in his world, it was. The farm offered security, a stable future, a familiar life. Everything had already been prepared for him. All he had to do was stay. Instead, he walked away. Not because he hated his family, not because he hated hard work, but because he could no longer ignore the feeling that he belonged somewhere else. His destination was Detroit, a city grown with industry, machinery, and opportunity. For Henry, it felt like a glimpse into the future. The distance was not enormous, but the decision was. Sometimes the biggest change in life are not measured in miles, they are measured in courage. Detroit did not welcome him with success, it welcomed him with struggle, long hours, small wages, tiny rented rooms, and centrally. For the first time, he was completely responsible for himself. No family safety net, no guaranteed future, only the possibility that his dream might work. Many people talk about following their passion, but few are willing to sacrifice comfort for it. Henry Ford did, and during those difficult years, he learned a lesson that would stay with him forever. Comfort rarely creates greatness. Growth usually begins when certainty ends. The mechanic years. Most success stories skip the boring years, the years nobody notices, the years where nothing appears to be happening. But those years often matter most. For Henry Ford, the workshop became his university. He never received the kind of normal education many successful men of his era had. Instead, he learned through experience, through broken machines, through mistakes, through repetitions, day after day, year after year. He worked as a machinist, a repairman, an engineer in training, whatever job allowed him to stay close to machinery. While others saw dirty equipment and exhausting labor, Henry saw lessons. Every machine had a story. Every breakdown revealed a weakness. Every repair revealed a solution. And slowly, without realizing it, he was training himself to see problems differently than most people. He wasn't simply learning how machines work, he was learning why systems failed, why work became inefficient, why people wasted time and effort. This observation would later become some of his greatest advantages. For nearly a decade, Henry lived inside the world of machines, watching, learning, improving, repairing. The world saw an ordinary mechanic, but something much bigger was happening beneath the surface. The future founder of Ford Motor Company was being built on lesson at the time. Long before he changed transportation, he was learning how to understand complexity. And that ability would eventually allow him to do something extraordinary. Not just build a better machine, but build a better system. Meeting Thomas Edison. Sometimes a single conversation changes the direction of a life, not because it teaches you something new, but because it confirms what you already believe. By the 1890s, Henry Ford was working as an engineer for Edison Illumination Company. For him, this was more than a job. It was an opportunity to work inside the world of innovation. Thomas Edison was already one of the most respected investors on earth, a man whose ideas had transformed modern life. Like many young inventors, Ford admired him. But admiration alone does not change lives. Action does. Years of work had already convinced Henry that gasoline powered vehicles were the future. Most people disagreed. Many believed horses would remain the dominant form of transportation for generations. Ford saw something different. He saw freedom, speed, possibility. Then came the moment that would stay with him forever. During a company gathering, Ford explained his ideas directly to Edison. He described his vision for a lightweight vehicle powered by a gasoline engine. Many people expected criticism. Instead, Edison leaned forward. He listened carefully. Then he reportedly struck the table with his fist and said, "Young man, that's the thing. You have it. Keep at it." Those words carried enormous weight because they came from someone who had already changed the world. Ford did not leave that meeting with money. He did not leave with investors. He did not leave with a finished automobile. He left with something else: validation. The realization that one of the greatest inventors believed his idea deserved a future. Sometimes belief arrives before success, and sometimes one sentence can fuel years of persistence. Edison did not build Henry Ford's dream, but he helped strengthen the conviction that it was worth pursuing. The first automobile. Every lesson from Henry's childhood had been leading toward this moment. The watches, the machines, the workshops, the years of observation. Now it was time to create something of his own. But dreams rarely arrive under perfect conditions. Ford still worked full time. His experiments happened after hours, late at night, when most people were sleeping. While others saw exhaustion, he saw opportunity. Piece by piece, he began building a machine unlike anything most Americans had ever seen. Parts were difficult to find. Money was limited. Nothing about the project was easy. But difficulty has never stopped people who are obsessed with an idea. Eventually, the machine took shape. For bicycle wheels, a small gasoline engine, a simple frame. No luxury, no elegance, just a working concept. In 1896, it was finally ready. Ford called it the quadricycle. And when it finally moved under its own power, everything changed. For the first time, an idea that had existed only in his imagination became real. The machine worked. It moved. It proved that years of effort had not been wasted. Many people would have celebrated the invention itself. Ford's mind immediately moved to a different question. Not can I build a car, but how can I build one for everyone? That question would eventually change the world. Two major failures. Success stories often hide the failures, but failure is where character becomes visible. After the quadricycle proved that his ideas worked, Ford believed the next step would be simple. Start a company, build automobiles, change transportation. Reality had other plans. His first automobile company attracted investors and financial backing. The opportunity was real, but so was the pressure. Ford faced a problem he had never encountered before. Building a machine and building a business are not the same thing. Investors wanted results, sales, profit, growth. Ford wanted perfection. Every time a vehicle seemed ready, he found another improvement, another adjustment, another problem to solve. He was obsessed with making the machine better. The investors were obsessed with selling it. Eventually, those two visions collided. The company failed. For many people, that would have been enough, a reason to quit, a reason to accept defeat. Ford chose a different response. He tried again. A second company, a second opportunity, a second chance to prove himself. And once again, the same conflict appeared. Ford was thinking about engineering. The investors were thinking about business. The result was another failure. This time, the consequences were even worse. Ford was forced out. The company continued without him. Years later, that company would become Cadillac. Imagine that moment, watching something you helped create continue its journey without you. Many people would have seen it as proof that they were not meant to succeed. Ford saw something else, a lesson. The problem was not the automobile. The problem was that he still had more to learn. Failure can destroy confidence, or it can sharpen it. The choice belongs to the individual. These two failures taught Ford lessons no classroom could have provided. They taught him patience, leadership, timing, business, and perhaps most importantly, they taught him that belief means very little when everything is going well. Real belief appears when nothing is working, when others lose faith, when the future becomes uncertain, when quitting seems reasonable. This was the moment where many dreams would have ended. Instead, Henry Ford kept moving forward. And because he did, the most important chapter of his life was still ahead. Model T, the car for ordinary people. Most inventors dream of creating something remarkable. Henry Ford dreamed of creating something useful. By the early 1900s, automobiles already existed, but they were expensive, complicated, unreliable. For most Americans, a car was still a luxury reserved for the wealthy. Ford saw a different future. He believed transportation should not belong only to the rich. It should belong to everyone. Farmers, workers, families, ordinary people. Many businessmen looked at wealthy customers and saw opportunity. Ford looked at ordinary people and saw millions. That difference changed everything. In 1908, Ford introduced the Model T. It was not the most beautiful automobile. It was not the fastest. It was not the most luxurious. But it was exactly what people needed. Reliable, durable, simple to repair, capable of handling rough roads and difficult conditions. The Model T was built for real life. And because of that, people loved it. What Ford was really selling was not a machine. He was selling freedom. For the first time, ordinary families could travel farther than ever before. Workers could live farther from their jobs. Farmers could reach markets more easily. Entire communities became more connected. The automobile stopped being a toy for the wealthy. It became a tool for everyone. But success created a new problem. Demand exploded. People wanted more cars than Ford could build. And once again, he faced a question that would define the next chapter of his life. How do you make something available to millions? The answer would become one of the most important innovations in modern history. The assembly line that changed the world. Many people remember Henry Ford as the man who built automobiles. But his greatest achievement was not the automobile itself. It was the system behind it. Ford understood something that many inventors never realized. A great product means little if people cannot afford it. And affordability depends on efficiency. So, instead of asking how to build a better car, he asked a different question. How do we build cars faster? The idea itself was not entirely new. Assembly systems already existed in other industries. But Ford saw their potential on a much larger scale. Before the moving assembly line, workers moved around the vehicle. After the moving assembly line, the vehicle moved to the workers. A simple idea, a revolutionary result. The time needed to build a car dropped dramatically. Hours became minutes. Production increased. Cost decreased. And suddenly, the dream of owning a car became realistic for millions of people. But Ford did something else that shocked the business world. He increased worker pay. While many companies focus only on profits, Ford understood something important. The people building the products should also be able to buy them. His famous $5 workday became one of the most talked about decisions in American business. Some called him reckless, others called him visionary. History would remember him a boss. The assembly line transformed more than Ford Motor Company. It transformed manufacturing itself. Factories across the world began copying the system. Entire industry changed. Modern production was born. And in a strange way, it all traced back to a curious farm boy taking apart a pocket watch. The same mindset never changed. Understand the system, improve the system, make it work better. That idea carried Henry Ford from a small farm in Michigan to a place among the most influential industrialists in history. When people think of Henry Ford, they usually think about automobiles, factories, assembly lines, business success. But those things were only the result. The real story began much earlier. It began on a farm, with a boy who felt different, a boy who questioned the future others had planned for him, a boy who took apart watches because he wanted to understand how the world worked, the death of his mother, the decision to leave home, years of invisible work, the encouragement of Edison, the failures that nearly ended everything. Each moment added another layer to the person he would become. Because greatness is rarely created by a single event. It's built through years of struggle, curiosity, loss, persistence, and belief. Henry Ford did not change the world because he built a car. He changed the world because he never stopped improving the systems around him. And perhaps that's the lesson hidden inside his story. The future often belongs to the people who refuse to accept things as they are. If you think there was another turning point that shaped Henry Ford, leave it in the comments below. Some lives are simply too big for a single video, and some stories continue long after the final chapter.